Welcome to Pop Chat. My name is Annette Tarpley. I'm the host as well as the founder of The Passion of Poetry. And today I'm very happy to welcome to our segment Jake St. John. Welcome, Jake.
Hey, thank you for having me.
This is the first time I'm going to preface this that I've had somebody standing the whole time. I'm just curious to see if you get tired and you end up sitting down. But very cool. Where are you at right now, Jake?
I'm out by the Salmon River in Connecticut.
Oh, okay. Great, great. So you're at your home. I know that you were afraid that maybe the kids would come in and they'd be
Yeah. There's no kids this weekend, so it worked out.
so no
Should be all
kids
set.
weekend. Okay, very good. So I'm going to give the stage to you. I don't usually read someone's bio because it sounds very scripted and kind of dull and monotone coming from me. So what I'm going to do is give the stage to you and have you tell us about Jake, whatever you want the world to know, including your writing adventure. And so I'm going to give the stage to you.
Thank you. I've been writing for about 15, 20 years. Out of Connecticut, I came up in New London. That's where I really found my voice and met a lot of mentors and really made my bones in poetry. I've been writing for a good 20 years or so. I have two full-length collections out, and I have a third collection out that I wrote with Jen Knickerbocker. So things are going all right. Oh, I can't hear
I mute myself and I tried
you.
to unmute myself, but I keep thinking the audience and my guests will eventually learn, to read lips or something. I don't know. But we have a couple comments actually. We'll just go to those real quick, and I'm going to give the audience a reminder. So this is from Kelly Owen. So see how she signed her. Hi, Kelly. See how she signed her comment because otherwise you just turn up as a Facebook user and you're not.
Yeah.
So, and then we have, hey, Annette, hey, whoever you are. And then we have Kelly again. Kelly's from the UK. She's a great poetess and a great performer of her work as well. And hey, Jake, make sure you sign your comments so we know who you are. Later
Hey.
on, after the show and it's posted, then we find out who you are. But during the show, we haven't a clue. So, oh, it's Chris Rice.
Very cool. My old neighbor.
Very cool indeed. It says tune in and listen to Jake. So I can't wait. I can't wait to hear you. You came as a recommendation. You want to
Oh,
tell us who recommended you?
what's that?
You want to tell us who recommended you?
I believe Todd Cirillo, the fantastic poet from New
Yeah,
Orleans, who I
yeah.
just he's got a brand new book out, and Disposable Darlings. And if anybody hasn't gotten a copy, please do. It's fantastic.
He's a great poet.
He
Love
is.
listening to him. I've had him on before. Probably need to have him on again.
Yeah.
Um,
He's wonderful.
So we have 16 people. That's almost a record. Usually there's been times where there's not been any, but for half a second we had. So this must be a good time, 6 o'clock in the
Yeah.
evening on a Sunday. And it's St. Patty's Day, so happy St. Patty's Day, everyone.
Yeah. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Oh, thank you. And that might be from Stuart, or I don't know. Kelly was given some roses too. So and this is Scott Young.
Hey,
So
Scott.
you spread the word pretty good because you got people
I try.
coming on. Yeah, great. That's wonderful. So I'm really anxious to hear your work, and I gave you. I'm really curious to find out your poem. So sometimes I give the poet the opportunity to come up with a title,
Yep.
and then we both write on it. And you came up with a great title. Um, it's just I loved it. So I
Awesome.
can't wait to hear your version. Do you
Yeah,
mind? Do you
I'm
mind
looking
doing
forward
that
to that.
first?
What's that?
Do you mind doing that one first?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I have it right here.
Okay,
Um,
great. I'm gonna now is that typed out or is it handwritten?
Yeah, I typed it out. It's easier for me to read.
Great. I'm gonna give you the stage.
And yet I. And yet I sit here, years past last call, where the ghosts of my youth once sat huddled at these same tables. Writers and politicians, artists and musicians, all in drunken conversations about words and the world. And now, here I am on a Friday afternoon, and the only thing that's changed are the faces at the bar, where I now sit, finishing my burger and my beer before happy hour. And yet I.
That was great. I loved it. And I love where you took it. It's so interesting because when I do this, I'm, usually people give me things and I'm kind of like, okay, what am I going to do with that?
Yeah.
Um, and so we're taking in totally different, directions. I recently had a thing like a panel discussion on Pop Chat where we're discussing hackers and scammers
Yep.
and one of the people that's on there that's a good friend of mine. I said let's do a poem on scamming, and we came up with the same title.
Oh
And
wow.
and the funny thing is that I knew I knew for some reason I just had this thought that I thought I bet you anything Richard thought of this and this is his title. And
Yeah,
it was like, hackers, scammers, spammers, oh my,
yeah.
So that was it. So Stuart, hey Stuart, Dan is here. I don't know if you're aware of Stuart Dan.
No,
He's a
I'm not sure.
great poet, and one of my admin. I took it somewhere totally different, kind of
Okay.
personalized it. And yet I look into the mirror, that image full of imperfections, graying hair that I continue to color to retain a somewhat warped youthful appearance, fine lines that gradually are transitioning into deeper creases, eyes that look at my image in amusement, with a clear understanding of the person who inhabits this aging body. Living day in and day out, every moment with the person who resides within my mortal shell, I have come to love that person, to know the goodness that inhabits the portal of my soul. She is the person who has endured the hardships and frustrations of life, sometimes tossing and turning amidst the waves of life like a ship lost at sea, unsure whether it will ever glimpse ground again, taking on water as a tidal wave engulfs me and I begin to sink, thinking drowning is imminent. And yet I live, now afloat in a calm sea, as I drift, reaching land, my feet planting in the sand. My resilience wins the battle, and I walk on. Hanging on to that thread of life prompted the reels of a lifetime to spin in the playground of my mind, reflecting on the good, the bad, the consequences resulting. It soon created a whirlwind of possible regrets. Looking once again at my reflection in the mirror, I then come to the realization that the culmination of it all has made me who I am, that flawed and imperfect person standing before me. And yet I love her even more. That's it.
Oh wow. Fantastic. The I like the honesty, the rawness of it. That was two different types. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, we really took it different directions. So I always love that.
Yeah, yeah,
And there's been time, I don't know what you got going on in the background. What is that?
yeah. I don't know what that sound is. I hear it too.
Oh, okay. I thought you had like a clown in the background, like,
Oh
so, so let's read some of the comments because we do have some. We have 21 people here. Look at good
wow.
job you did. Oh, guess who showed up?
Who's that?
Todd Cirillo. Hey,
Hey
Todd.
Todd. Cheers to Todd.
Cheers to Todd. You're not drinking green beer, right?
No, no, I don't know that I've ever had green beer.
I don't think I have either. I don't think. The next day you might kind of wonder what you were drinking, right? No, Thomas here, not sure why I can't share the post now live.
Huh.
Not sure, but if you go to the Passion of Poetry site on Facebook under events, you'll see it there, and then there's a place where you can share it from there. And Stuart Dan is here. Loves both renditions of the Yet I. Thank you. And hello, Annette. Oh, it's Elizabeth from Nigeria. Hello. Thank you very much. And really good pieces from 3 words, indeed. And someone said something about the playground. I guess on my mind. I don't know. And my man, Jake, which we don't know who you are, but I'm glad he's your man. So, is there? I know you have a significant other, right?
Yep.
And is she very supportive with your writing and your poetry?
Yeah, she's very supportive. We actually we collaborated on the Lip Sleeve Scars book together. So she's very supportive. She's always taking pictures and just doing some recording just to make sure everything's taken care of. But she's
That is great.
couldn't ask for more.
That is great. That's wonderful. So you're both writers.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's marvelous. Is that something that came out after you were together, or is that something that kind of drew you into each other?
We wrote we worked together, so we wrote together for years. We'd pass notebooks back and forth and just kind of write a line, write a thought, things like that. And so it was even back when we were friends, we used to do that. And then we started polishing the poems and things like that. So it was kind of a fun process to see it all take place.
Wow, wow. That's really cool. I think that what I'm going to do, because that noise is so distracting, what I'm going to do is have you go in and then go out and come back in again.
Okay.
And I think that while you're gone, wait before you do that. I'll do something like show a video or something,
Okay.
rather than me reciting something. So, but let me kind of get that up, and then I'll have you exit and come back in. I mean, every once in a while it fixes things, but
Yeah.
not always. Not
All
always.
right.
So we'll find out, I guess. So,
Yeah. All right.
um, let me find something I want to play real quick. But let's get rid of that. And all right, is the weather good there? Are you having any rain?
No, it's pretty nice today. Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Okay, so I'm going to have you go ahead and exit, and then come back in, and I'll just play a quick video here
Okay.
in a minute. That won't work. I was trying to show a video. I apologize, but I forgot to share my screen. So y'all can't even really see it. So I'll try to do it again real quick. This is one that Alan Johnson did. It's called The Hunger of a Poet, which I wrote over a year ago. And Alan did a great job. When I saw it again, I thought, did I write that? And was happy to find out that, yeah, I did write it. It has my name on it. So if I can present, and then I will share my screen and YouTube, The Hunger of the Poet. So here we go.
The hunger of the poet is fed by words, manipulated into a myriad of stanzas as his pen greedily begins to ink the stark white pages of paper. His mind conjuring tales of truth or fiction, perhaps both, as he embellishes simple truths and sprinkles them with mindful imaginations. He is compelled to write, for if he does not act upon the choreographed lines that flood his conscience, he will become physically ill from suppression. Formation of his word art is unleashed at the break of day, like the rushing waters that cascade from a waterfall. There is no defined beginning or ending of its journey. Poetry was there from inception, sometimes lying dormant for years, until an event in time occurs, opening the portal in the poet's soul. Once poetic creativity is awakened, the poet is compelled to write as life feeds the hunger that yearns to have full reign and is not dictated by conformity. There are no rules that will sequester the ink from spilling, the thoughts from accumulating, nor will his imagination be confined into social adherence. The catalysts that prompt his writings are limitless as his emotions further fuel the hunger that is insatiable, oblivious to the undertones, and always half empty. The only promise of cure from its epidemic hunger is the intuitive knowledge that the promise of tomorrow will squelch the gnawing briefly satisfied, that the ink shall spill again.
I can't hear you.
No, because I'm muted. My dogs were making a lot of noise in the background and being quite rowdy back there. So someone said that your sound sounds like Harpo's horn.
What's that?
Here, I'll show you the comment. Someone said that your sound sounds like Harpo's horn. Do you know who Harpo is?
I do. Yep. No,
Um,
we should be all good. I did some tech work, so we should be good to
okay,
go.
good. I think it would just be better because I don't want you reciting your beautiful works and then us to hear that noise, that distracting noise in the background.
Yeah.
And I think that was from Stuart Dan. Hey, Jake, read a wrestling poem of yours. That one.
I don't know that I printed any out.
Okay. And then Ham Jammers approved.
Ham Jammers, yeah. The Ham Jammers is it's a group my friend Mike Hamilton started during COVID, when everybody was just like right at the beginning, we were all locked up, and Mike Mike plays guitar, and we're into the Dead and everything. So we'd video call like this during COVID and play tunes and read poetry and stuff. And then as the world opened back up, Mike started being down south, going to different festivals and things, and meeting bands and just meeting like-minded people. And this group kind of took on a life of its own. So there might be some ham jammers that are watching. If there are, cheers to you guys.
That's really cool. Very cool. So you're a musician too,
No,
also?
I appreciate music. I've tried to play guitar. I tried. I played percussion when I was younger, but I'll stick with the words. Jen, my girlfriend, she's a musician, so I have a lot of musician friends, and I appreciate it, and I attempt it, but I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that to anybody.
Well, you make music with your words, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give the stage to you. I want you to go ahead, Jake, if you would, and just recite a couple pieces for us, and then I'll see you back after you're
Sure.
done.
Yeah. I'll read a couple of them. I'm going to do a couple readings from my first book, Lost City Highway, put out in 2019 by Jabber Publication. Um, these are poems mostly from 2000 up to 2019 or so. Um, First poem that I'm going to start with is I Talk to the Moon. This is a poem that I wrote for Jack Micheline. I was out in California and was listening to an interview, and Jack, without getting too wordy, Jack kind of said nobody really looks around, nobody looks up, everybody's always looking down. So this poem's I Talk to the Moon for Jack Micheline. I'm talking to the moon tonight for you, Jack. I moved my feet and made it to California, a long way from home. I talked to the moon in Asheville. I talked to the moon in Nashville. I talked to the moon in New Orleans, where the waters rose above the doors, but the bars did not close. I talked to the moon in Texas, in wide open spaces, where poems roared like outlaws through the streets. And the moon talked to me as it shined in the sky and reflected the white line of the highway. My inside spilled on the streets of Broadway in San Francisco, my heart thumping in Chinatown. I talked to the moon and rambled my dreams and my nightmares, and the moon talked to me, Jack. The moon talked to me.
Wow, that was great. Loved it.
Thank you. This poem is Crazy Al, Where Are You Buried? Back home, growing up, there was a dude that would wander the streets, and everybody just knew him as Al, and nobody knew anything else about him, really. So this is one of my Crazy Al poems. Crazy Al, where are you buried? I wondered to myself in this bright afternoon, where do they bury the bums that everyone knows by first name? Crazy Al, everyone greets him with a smile and a, how you doing, pal? No one asked questions when he disappeared. Just the kids who saw him on the streets through car windows on their way to Sunday school. They just kept on moving, assuming he went someplace else, and finally decided to leave town. Is there an invisible cemetery for all the invisible people all over the world to be buried in? Do they have funerals right in front of our eyes down by the railroad tracks, asking each other for cigarettes and wine at the reception? Bury me in an invisible cemetery with all the faces we don't see and all the stories we never heard. That's Crazy Al, Where Are You Buried?
That was great. Love that too. So, would you say that most of your poetry is based on your real life and experiences?
Yeah, I try to be as honest as possible. It's all seeing interactions and seeing life and kind of trying to slow things down and take a snapshot of something relatable that everybody can draw some sort of emotion from. Hopefully, kind of like creating a community in a way, I guess.
Yeah, indeed. Is there something that a subject matter that inspires you more than any other?
I don't think so. I write as many poems walking down the street as I do hiking in the woods. I think it's just finding something that has that everybody can take some sort of emotion from. It should be relatable. So it's usually there might be some sort of humor or some sort of irony in the situation. Maybe that's the tie-in. That's the thing that keeps everything together. Poetry, you should be able to giggle, have a fun time when you're reading it. I mean, you should run all the emotions, but a lot of times it's just something that makes you go, oh man, how about that? And it plays around in your head for a while, and you get a poem or two out of it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. How did you come up with the title for that we did?
For As Yet I actually I went into my girlfriend's office and I was like, I need a line for a poem, and I bounced a couple ideas, and somehow that came up. I think between the two of us, it was a phrase that was thrown up, and we were like, yeah, that's
Wow. Yeah, it was a great title. I'm sorry, but I have some unruly dogs behind. I tried.
Don't worry.
I tried to put them.
My dogs are on the second floor right now, so We can't hear them.
I try to put them in my bedroom, right? And shut the door upstairs when I do this. But the problem is this, that they especially my older dog, who knows me very well, knows that I'm trying to give her the slip. So she won't even go in the room. She's like, I know this, I know what you're doing. You might
Yep.
say we're gonna go night night, but we're not going night night. I know what you're doing. So it's kind of funny. We have sounds like Sylvester Stallone. Do they think you sound like Sylvester?
I never got Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah. And then we have This Was Great, Love It. And Wow, Talk to the Moon is a lovely poem. That's from Elizabeth.
Thank
Elizabeth
you.
is a young poet from Nigeria. She's only about, I don't know, 15, 16 years old.
Hey, right on. Very cool.
Written a few books already. So,
Nice.
oh, I love Jack. Nice to hear ya. Julie Valant. Yeah,
Hey, Julie.
I was thinking Julie was on the show.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure she was. So, hey, Julie.
Julie
Good
and
to see
Todd, I know,
you.
are pretty tight.
Yeah, you guys have your own little poetic cult going on, don't you? Yeah. So I'm going to have you go ahead and do a couple more for us.
Sure.
And I'm sure everybody's excited to hear your work. So I love how you have that marked up. That's something I would do.
Yeah, I like 9 times out of 10, I mark them all up, and then by the time I go to read them, I'm like, I'm not reading those poems. So they look like a peacock or something. So, but it kind of steers me. This is another poem that I wrote about my hometown from Lost City Highways. I'm going to dedicate the reading of this poem to Michael Hamilton, Jewish City Gangster. He walks down Main Street in a black pinstripe suit, what Dillinger might have worn the night he was gunned down. But now it appears, after years of brawls and bad luck, closer to rags than mafia wear. He limps through town, suffering from the wound left by the bullet that found his leg one night years ago at the old hotel down by the tracks. His drunken stubble is what's left of a 3-day binge. He pauses briefly in a barroom doorway, swigs a pint pulled from his pocket, squinting into the sun, scanning the sidewalk, always on the lookout for the lady in red. That was Jewish City Gangster. This poem is it's called Sing a Song. I'm a teacher during the week. This was a poem that I wrote overhearing a teacher and a bus driver have a conversation. It's called Sing a Song. Sing a song. Early morning, sun in the sky, that big yellow bird pulls up to the front walk of the school. The doors open, a song falls down the stairs with kids wearing smiles out onto the front walk. And I asked the bus driver why she sings songs with the kids she brings to school every day and home every night. And she said to me, they're singing songs. They're not fighting. They're not fighting. And I sat down on the bench with those words in my head and I thought to myself, sitting in the sun, why can't rich old men sing songs together? Rich old men financing all these wars should sing songs together. And all the soldiers all over the world should sing songs together as their bones are bleached by the sun out in the battlefields. And all the politicians in all the countries under the stars can get together and sing songs. They can all sing the same song. A song about the children, a song about the homeless, a song about the hungry, a song about the soldier whose bones are being bleached by the sun out in the battlefields. And that's Sing a Song.
That was great. I loved both of them. I really, really love that.
Thank you.
When you talked about why can't, it's interesting. It's interesting because for years I've been saying that we need to get the testosterone out of warfare, take all the men out. The women just need to go and have cook-offs, you know? And yeah, it just needs to be settled that way. We'll just have a cook-off. Your country time. And yeah, so that's been my philosophy for years.
Yeah.
The other thing that you said when you were doing that is, and you know, you were making this kind of analogy of just, why can't we do that instead of, just sing songs and have that be the
Yeah.
way to. I wrote a poem called Two Boys in a Ball
Mm-hmm.
that talks about two boys on opposite sides of the war. And
Right.
then the ball comes to the center of the street, and the sides are on each side, and they have to come to the center to get the ball, and they're on, and then they're playing together, and then the parents are on each side, shocked and like,
Yeah.
oh no. But
Yeah. Yeah.
even the military people there were kind of like touched by that. Anyway,
Yeah.
it was, yeah. So it's fun how we can take things and twist them into people really thinking about situations and how things are.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you said that you teach.
I do.
What do you teach?
I teach fifth grade language arts and social studies.
Very good. Do you ever have them do poetry?
We do sometimes. Yeah, there's we have a chance to get that in, absolutely.
So you as an educator, because it's always my big thing on how we can really promote poetry more and get it infused into our society, because I think it's kind of taken a backseat in the literary world. How would you what would you suggest that we do to make it more infused into our society?
Um, I don't know. I've always told everybody that if you wanna know what's going on, you got to read a poet, and
Mhm.
poetry kind of gives you the news. Um, I know there's a lot of new young adult novels that are written in a poetic style, broken into stanzas and things like that. Um, I don't know. I always wonder how to get more people to read poetry, and I think you just have to. The more accessible it is, I think that's you just have to make it accessible and hope that people pick it up and take to it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I agree. There's lots of ideas that I have about how to do things, but
Hmm.
I want to do it on a big scale somehow. And I
Yeah,
think that's the only way I can. And I have an idea. I just don't know how to make it happen.
you're right. Yeah.
But we have a few more. We have a comment up here I'm trying to get to, and for some reason it's not clicking on it. It says Jewish gangsta, city gangsta. Awesome imagery.
That
So
might be a typo. Jewish city gangster.
I was wondering. Sorry,
Yeah.
girlfriends, on the best boy and girl answer. I'll try to catch up later, Jake, and that's always beautiful. Oh, that's fine. That's probably from Stuart Dan. It's very late in the UK right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm. Sing an awesome song, and that was sing a song was beautiful. It really was. It has
Thank you.
great depth and meaning. Do you ever share your poetry with your students?
Um, not specifically. I've had students come up to me with a copy of my book and ask me to sign it. They're usually playing around on YouTube or something, and will find me. But I try not to. I try to keep it separate.
Yeah, yeah. Is
But yeah.
do you do you ever rhyme? Are you a rhymer at all?
Um, I not particularly. I Rhyming, I feel, puts you in a box, but I do enjoy while the sound. So when I'm writing a poem, I do want to have maybe a repetition of sound here or there, not specifically a rhyme at the end of the line, but maybe two words with the same vowel usage, just to kind of, we're talking about music, where kind of keep the rhythm going, where you might need a couple of the same vowel sounds and repetitive syllables. So I will do inside rhymes in the line, and that's not to say I'm sure I've rhymed a line here or there, but
Mhm.
I I try not to. I find myself, if I'm gonna write a rhyming poem, that really limits the use of vocab that I can use, and that limits the emotion that I can use. So I tend not to use it. There are some poets, Al Winans, he's got some fantastic rhyming poems.
Yeah.
I haven't found myself to be successful in that format, I guess I'd say.
Yeah, it's all good. I mean, I rhyme. I tend to be a rhymer, but I love it when I don't rhyme. Actually,
Hmm.
I'm usually prouder of those works. So, yeah, that's great. Now, when you're speaking, I can tell that you've done this before. So you must do some open mic stuff or some spoken word type stuff. Do you?
When I came up in New London, we had two open poetries weekly. So I used to always I'd been on stage for a long time. Since COVID, it's been tough. A lot of things have shut down. I kind of moved. I moved away from New London, so I don't have the accessibility to a mic right now. But I'm always looking. I'm always up for a show. So I do enjoy performing. It took me a while to realize that getting the poem across is more than just getting it on the paper. You have to be able to recite it. You have to be able to give the audience a chance to hear you, and hopefully when they read it, they're getting the same message, because you can't be there with everybody when they read the poem, but if they can hear you once, then maybe that'll help you out a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. So, is there a poem that you would consider that is kind of your signature poem? Do you have one of those?
Um, I don't think so. I'm always changing. There's poems that I've liked that I think maybe one poem that jumps out that I would say was an important poem for me was um, this poem called Satori, and I submitted it to a magazine years ago. And the line originally in the poem was when I was young, but when the poem was published in the magazine, it came out as when I was you, and just dropping that NG and turning young to you totally changed the whole poem. It went
Yeah.
from for the better. So we've always joked that that was the world's best typo, because it really
But it changes
strengthened
the
the
whole.
poem.
Yeah, that was great. Isn't that interesting how that happened? That's
Yeah,
remarkable, actually. I love that. So I'm going to ask you a question that I ask everyone that comes on,
sure.
and that is tomorrow you run across Aladdin's lamp, and you can have whatever three wishes you want in the whole wide world. Sky's the limit. What wishes are you going to wish for?
Oh man. Hmm. I'd I wish for healthy family and friends. Um, that's a given. I mean, I'd want that anyway. Oh man. Man. Something I probably thought about a million times, but I would say um, free to make. I'd wish to be able to make choices based on happiness, not based on financial or monetary restrictions, if that makes sense. Like a life of exploration. Um,
Yeah, that's a great wish. You got
and
one
then
more?
one more. I'd I wish for a cure for cancer. I think
That's good.
that's
Yeah.
enough of that. That's yeah.
And why we still don't have that, I don't know.
Right, exactly.
Um,
At this point, yeah. Yep.
yeah. I think this is Cheryl Jackson talking. She put her name first, I'm not sure. And so she says, teach poetry. Does it just come from natural? No one taught me. I just found it easy to write. Have you ever taught poetry?
I've never really like taught specifically poetry. I've done poetry lessons and things like that. But I've taken a couple poetry courses. But I think what really helped me was when to write good poetry, you have to read good poetry. So just seeking out poetry and being like, okay, this is same thing with music or writing a novel. If you want to do something well, you study those that have done it well. In sports, if
Yeah.
you want to get better, you practice. You study those that are better. And so same thing with art and poetry. You want to do something better, you find those writers that are better than you and see what they're doing, how they do it, why are they doing it. So I've learned more just from reading poetry. I think not to say I've had some fantastic teachers and mentors that really steered me in the right direction, but they always steered me towards books. So
Yeah. Is there a certain poet that is your favorite?
um, that's I mean, yeah, I off the top of my head, if the house is on fire and I can only grab one book of poetry, I'm grabbing a copy of Todd Cirillo, any of his books. Todd is
Todd.
yeah,
Todd.
like Todd
I
is
marvelous.
fantastic.
Yeah, he's
Um,
great. Marvelous.
I've been, I mean, I read all the classics like the Kerouac, Jack Micheline. I love, but Todd Cirillo. Right now, I have a stack poetry. I got Todd Cirillo, Bretton Booth, William Taylor Jr. What else is it? I have I just got a copy of Prying, Jack Micheline, Bukowski, and McDarris. So I would say like Todd Cirillo's always in there, Brenton Booth, Adrian Manning, John Griner, those guys. Merritt Walden, I've been reading a lot of him lately. I try to read my contemporaries. I want to see what's going on. I want to see what they're up to.
And I think it's very important that we support each other too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So someone has a question for Jake. Is it true then when the going gets weird, the weird turn pro?
That's absolutely true.
That's interesting. That's
That's Hunter
interesting.
Thompson. That's a Hunter Thompson quote.
I have never heard that before. Jake, Jake doesn't need his wishes. He has everything that makes him happy. Good, good for you, Jake. Very good. That's even more marvelous. So
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
I'm going to have you kind of just do a grand slam of about four of your poems. Your poems really aren't like horribly long or anything. I mean, some people can go on and on and on, unless you have some long ones too. I don't
I,
know.
I, I have I have one long poem, but I very rarely read it because I lose my attention halfway through it.
How long does it typically take you to write a poem?
um, it's always different. I very few times can I say I'm going to sit down and write a poem. Um, Usually I'm driving or I'm listening. If I'm listening to jazz, uh, I'll like a lot of times listening and I just find myself talking and then there's the voice that comes in your head and you kind of have um, like a poetry reading happening in your head where there's a poet that just keeps reciting words or the same phrase over and over and then it kind of catches you and it it usually happens like that where I just there's this outer being voice that comes through and I just start writing it down or
So you had
I mean
mentioned sometimes you're in the car driving and stuff comes to you. So what do you do in that case? How do you remember it? What do you do?
that's when I turn the radio off and I just keep reciting over and over until trying to sit on certain words so that when I can get to a place that I can pull over or when it gets too much then I'll find a parking lot and write. Back in the day, I would just call my voicemail and I would recite the poem into my voicemail and then go back later on, especially if I was hiking or something like that and I didn't happen to have any paper with me. I take out a phone and call voicemail. That was before all those apps and everything. So I just
Yeah.
leave myself messages all day long.
I love that. Love it, love it, love it. So what I think I'm going to do is give the stage to you. Why don't you go ahead and recite four pieces for us?
Sure.
All right.
Um, Well, I'm on this page, so I'll read Reflections from the Road. I cannot sleep tonight. Stars scream in my eyes. The train horn tosses and turns in my bed. Invisible children, stomachs as empty as their dreams, whimpering in the Russian night. Homeless, clutching cardboard resumes and coffee cups, void of hope. Fragile voices asking my nightmares for change. Um, I read that poem I was telling you about. This is Satori. It's what we used to call the the world's greatest typo. Satori. Woke up and got drunk. Found my way to the streets and tripped along the tracks. Past the cafe I read poetry at when I was you, and nothing was empty. In the car, in the street, and horns and disruption. $2 in my pocket, enough for black coffee and the paper. It's full of news I can get for free with my eyes open and my ears to the ground. And somewhere on the television, the State of the Union's being read. And I did not listen. I did not listen. This is my poem, Advice, and I'll dedicate the reading of this to Todd Cirillo. Advice. If you're planning on traveling to the edge of the world, bring a change of clothes. You're going to get dirty. And bring a bottle. Have a drink with whoever else survives. This will be the last poem for this set. Today in New London for Tom Weigel. Tom Weigel is one of my poetry mentors. If you haven't read him, seek him out. Miss him. Today in New London for Tom Weigel. The jazzier poems still echo on city corners and bounce off battered buildings. They race down streets on skateboards and spill out in conversations at coffee shops and taverns. They crawl across yards like the neighbor's cat, leaving footprints in the snow. And they sing like little birds in the trees whose leaves have fluttered in the wind, like your words. And I sit here, east of the sun, reading your books and listening to the rain rattle the gutters like your typewriter rattling the night as your poems float out onto the sidewalk and sprout like flowers in the moonlight. Thank you.
That's beautiful. Love that. That was a good friend of yours who passed, a poet friend of yours.
What's that?
Is that a poet friend of yours who passed that you is for?
Yeah, Tom Weigel was when I came to New London, and I came to New London in the fall of 2004, and I told some of my friends while we were in line at a coffee shop, this is the year I'll read poetry in public this year. And we got up to buy our coffee, and there's this like Sharpie doodled pamphlet flyer for a reading that Sunday. So long story short, I show up, I meet Tom Weigel, and he changed my poetry life. He passed away a couple of years ago, but we try to send him up and do him right. There are some recordings of him reading out there. He's got a ton of books that should be available, but he was a fantastic poet, and I mean he was poetry. There's certain people that just are their art, and he was one of them.
Wonderful, wonderful. Glad that you remember him like that too, and I'm sure you'll keep him alive.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I think it's really important that we do that when people pass. There are such great writers that we still keep them alive, because I mean that could go on for years too, right?
Yeah.
It's a great thing, actually. Is there anything that you feel is off limits for you as far as writing?
No, I think when you're writing, you need to be honest. So whatever you're writing about should come from some sort of honest view, honest image, honest vision. So I don't think there's ever been anything off limits. I try to get as creative as I can and try not to take shortcuts. So I don't think there's anything off limits worth trying everything once, I guess.
Do you edit your pieces very much?
Yeah, I that's my favorite part of writing. I love writing first draft, but then I love going back and just sitting back and having 10, 15 minutes to read the poem, change it, read it again. Am I getting because I want to make sure that whatever poem I put out there is the same poem, that the same picture that I had in my head, or the same picture that I heard from the voices. I want to make sure that's on the paper. So I, I'm, I feel like I'm pretty meticulous when it comes to the editing and revision. And I
But no, you aren't, Jake. I mean, the U was a typo. Remember?
yeah, right. Yep. I I do. I like sending my poems to other poets and getting their take on it, and then playing around from there. But yeah, sometimes typos just they change it, because even that typo changed the way I looked at poetry. I was like, holy smokes, that really did something different to the poem. So um, I try to make sure every word in every poem has its own place. If it doesn't need to be there, it shouldn't be there. It should be gone.
Yeah, yeah. Have you written anything other than poetry, short stories, or anything else?
I wrote a short story in college. I'd like to start writing some longer pieces, a novella or something. I just have to figure out how to do it. You know, it's its own art, and it's not something I've done before. So I appreciate the writers that flash fiction and short stories and novellas and novels and things like that. I'm reading a novel now, Grease Grease Gumbo. Rick Coster wrote it, and it's fantastic. I can really appreciate that, and I really am looking forward to trying to learn that art, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, that's really cool. Love that. So, how often do you write?
Um, there's periods where I'll write a poem every day for a week or so, and then there's periods where I go weeks or months without getting anything down, and then all of a sudden it just hits you all at once. So I've never really, like, when I was younger, I used to get really down in those periods where nothing was, no pens were connected to the paper, and I get really down. But then over time, you realize that Kay McDonough told me, when you're in those periods, your gas tank's on empty, so you're filling up, you're living your life, you're filling up your gas tank, and then when you're ready to take off, you'll do that. So that really changed my mentality on, okay, even though I'm not being creative right now, I'm experiencing, I'm putting the groundwork in for something that will become a creative vision. So
Yeah, excellent answer. So, is there a certain poem that you'd like to leave us with today that you kind of want to end with?
um I'll read let me read this one. I got it back here. Vagabond Blues. In the stillness of the night, wind chimes fill the room. The train horn blasts me back to shadows. The passing racket fades into moonlight. My thoughts ride the rails across the distant western prairie, where tonight a freight train a mile long carries the dreams of 1,000 dead hobos across the desert to a rail yard in heaven. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you. I wanted to ask you before we leave one question I haven't actually asked for a long time, um, and that is this: do you feel like someone who is a great poet, and I'm not just talking average, I'm talking about, stellar of a high caliber. Do you think a great poet, that is something that is learned, or is that something that is innate? Is it's a gift?
I think anybody can learn to write poetry. I think you can study it. Anybody can figure out how to put some words together, but a poet can put the emotion. A poet makes the words stab you in the heart. The poet can make you cry. The poet can make you laugh. Anybody can put words together, but when you're reading those words, I like to think that when somebody's reading honest words, they can feel it. They can feel it. They know it's honest. Or if they're just reading words that are written on a page. So I think it is a combination. I think you have to have that empathy. I think poets need to be empathetic in some sort of having some sort of connection to the environment. But it's you can learn to write, but you need to be honest. You need to be empathetic, and like the real poets kind of bleed onto the page. So I think it's a combination, but I think you need to be able to live it as well. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. And I think, so basically, I think what you're trying to say is that those who are more stellar or better poets are able to really breathe life into their
Yeah.
poetry words.
Yeah, if you can be honest and put it down on the paper, people are going to realize that, oh man, this is something different than just this story that I'm reading over here. And I think that's why a lot of the poets I like put themselves on the page.
Yeah, and I do that. I do some fiction though, because I kind of like use my imagination and going places.
Yeah.
So but yeah. There's been times though, I don't know if you've ever done this, where you've written something and somebody thinks the piece is about you and it's not.
Yeah.
It might be about something that you're aware of or that you're affected by, but I just see that my thing is I forgot. I forgot. Shame on me. I forgot to plug. I brought my plug in. I forgot to plug it in. But so we're gonna say goodbye on that note because I'm afraid I'm not gonna be able to say goodbye. But thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today and listening to Jake. You're a stellar
Thanks
poet,
for having
and I can see why Todd recommended you. And just wanted to say love and blessings to all. And thank you again so much for sharing your wonderful works with us, Jake.
Thanks for having me.
It was our pleasure indeed. Thanks so much, and everyone, take good care. Thanks so much. Bye bye.